We're so excited that you've joined us for today's live stream presented by rvtravel.com. Today's program will begin shortly. While we allow some time for others to join, we want to take care of a few housekeeping items. Everything presented in this live stream is true to the very best of our knowledge and experience, but we are human. Occasionally, we might be wrong. We don't want you spending thousands of dollars simply because we said something was good or fixing something according to what we suggested. Do your research, check your owner's manual, and seek assistance from your vetted and trustworthy certified RV technician.
So during our live stream, it's only going to get better if you participate. We'd love to hear from YOU. So while you're tuning into the show, please let us know what kind of rig you have, where you currently reside, if you're a part-timer, if you're a full-timer, and most importantly, what technical questions can we help you with? Feel free to submit your questions throughout the show. You can even start that right now.
During today's live stream, we may show you what we like to call cool tools. These are tools and gadgets that we actually use and we believe will be helpful to you. If you are interested in learning more about these products, please see the YouTube description box for more information.
During today's live stream, we will be doing a giveaway. To be included in the drawing, be sure to include a hashtag on the screen in your comments during the live stream. So let's get started.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Talking RV Tech. I've got Dustin Simpson here from California RV Specialties. Ashley's in the background, and so is Chuck. My name's Dave Solberg, and I'm your host. And we are ready to take some questions. We've got Scott Schaefer right off the bat came in, and Scott has a 2022 27RK. And what brand is that, Scott? Let us know. So we're looking for some other people that are coming in. There's Britt. Britt, I believe last week was the winner of the vintage calendar.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right. And Britt has.
Let us know where you guys are from too, if you know.
Yep. Britt's got a 2020 Cedar Creek Hathaway, and she is from Hartwell, Georgia. Scott's is a Jayco. Oh, cool. Okay. Britt says, "Yeah." Have you gotten your calendar yet, Britt? We'll see. Okay.
He's saying, yes, Dave, I've got it.
Yes. Stefan is from Massachusetts and has a 2008 Forest River Georgetown. All right, cool. And I got to get out of this screen here. Who else do we have? Britt says, yes, she got her calendar. All right. Well, in about 23 days, you'll get to use it. Yeah. Then it'll be January 1st. So, all right. Well, we've got a few people coming on here. One of the things today's giveaway is going to be a weather radio, one of those NOAA things. This happens to be one that I use. It's got an antenna. You can charge it with a. Yep. So there's the one that you'll actually win. But I've taken this many times with me, and you can charge it solar or plug it into a USB port or your cell phone cord. There's a variety of ways. AM, FM. I was telling Chuck that's pretty fancy. You know, I'm from Iowa, and next year we're supposed to get FM radio. I think finally is the thing that we're gonna get. So, yes, Where's my laugh track?
I did it for you.
Okay, that's good. So I just I'm a struggling comedian. I just signed a new cable contract though. So thank you. I'm really excited about it. I'm going to get HBO for $39.95 a month. So cable's coming. All right. Do we have any questions? Krista R here says 2022 Jayco J Flight 28 bunkhouse chandelier. We love it. Great bunkhouse floor plan for our family. Hashtag radio. Yes. Make sure you put up hashtag radio. Britt did it again. There we go. Terry Brooks is from FT. Must be, what's FT in Tennessee? What do you think? FT.
Fontana?
Forest River, not. He's got an 06 Monaco, 38-foot night. Tell us what FT stands for, Terry. So anybody have questions? We got cold weather coming in. And we're actually we got up into 60 degrees here one day, and then high 40s, which is great in December in Iowa, but now it's dipping back down. It looks like the temperature at this point is somewhere in the 20s. Supposed to get snow and rain tomorrow, so we're hunkering down anyway.
And a lot of the groups, Dave, we've been getting a lot of furnace questions lately.
Furnace questions in the groups, I bet. Yep. A lot of times what happens with those furnaces is you don't use them for the whole summertime. They get in and they fire them up in the winter. A lot of comments that I've gotten from people is that I started my furnace up, and man, it smells like it's on fire.
Yeah.
And just letting them sit around for that long of a period, you're just going to get stuff built up in the combustion chamber. You get dust in there, spiders, that kind of stuff. So anyway, what would you recommend for maintenance on a furnace? Just a regular owner maintenance.
Well, for the owner to do it, I would say go ahead and take an air wand, and every so often go inside the tube with the blower and blow it out. Just to, it's basically like clearing out the chimney. Think of it that way.
And you can make your own.
You can make your own.
This is one that I use. I just got an air blower from Harbor Freight, and got I think it's a 1/4-inch hose from Ace Hardware.
Mm-hmm.
I heated it up because it was a little tight to get it on, so I just used a heat gun to soften it up and get it in on a little pinch clamp, and that way I can get way down inside some of those burner assemblies.
Yeah, and depending on what kind of furnace it is, if it's like an Atwood, like an 8500 model that has the access door outside, where you can actually take the 2 screws off or 4 screws off and pull it off, then you can get in there and blow it all out really good.
Yep.
Anytime you have any appliance that works off of propane's got a natural garlic byproduct in it called ethanol mercaptan, and that smells like garlic, and it's going to attract all your pests, your spiders, bees, mud daubers, ants. I've had mice, baby rats, sparrows, baby bats. I mean, you name it, it goes in there. So, invest in yourself, put on a furnace bug screen. And then, like you're saying, take that wand and you'll see sometimes they're indicated on the chambers, whether it's an intake and exhaust, or maybe it's a split system. Wear some protective glasses. Exactly. There we go. And so wear some protective glasses, and you see on the bottom of the one that Dave's holding, the bottom is hot and the top is the fresh air intake.
Yep.
So if you take and you can put your blower through either end and blow both directions to get out anything. That'll also help clear up anything that's on the burner chamber as well.
Yeah, and that would be right on the outside. Your furnace would sit in its own enclosure, usually under a cabinet or under the bed or something like that. And then it's got the 2 ports that come out. I do have a couple different versions here. I have the one that you were saying about the access panel coming off in there and doing that. So there's not a whole lot of maintenance other than just making sure you've got a good clean path. And typically what happens is
maintenance for the owners to do.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's pretty easy. So Terry, tell us what problem you had last week with your Magnum inverter charger. What was it doing? So you can tell us here. So now I did have a question that we'll post tomorrow from somebody that's got an inverter. They weren't shown how to use it from the dealer. It's got a 100-watt solar panel. It's got a 1,000-watt inverter, and the refrigerator runs off the inverter. It's residential, so it's going to run off the inverter when they're not hooked to shoreline power. And then they didn't know they had to turn the inverter on. They wanted to know how that works. So they got a 100-watt solar panel, 2 batteries. They didn't tell me what they had, but she wants to know if she should upgrade that solar panel in case the power goes off at any point in time. And I know Zach's kind of the solar expert. Yeah. What have you seen with that?
Usually, like when somebody comes in, I always tell them, I had a guy today come in and he wanted to purchase an inverter. And I made him an appointment to come back in so we can look at his coach, because he was eager to come in here and spend some money. But I said, well, we need to see what kind of batteries you have, where we can put that inverter, what you want to run. And then I talked to him about, different sides of power throughout the coach. So do you want to, supply one leg of the coach or both legs of the coach? Or do you want to just have a certain outlet? So then we talked about individualized inverters, that he could run like just a sleep apnea machine or just a TV. So it's real important to do your homework, look at the top, 3 companies that are out there, understand the differences, and then about your own individual use, because a lot of things come into play. We currently have one inside here, Dave, right now that's on a Mercedes chassis, and the gentleman is pretty much like, hey guys, I want to be completely off grid. And so he's actually spent like $25,000, but he knew what he wanted. So he came in and bought like a $5,000 lithium battery. And I mean, it's over my head. I mean, I just get lost in it sometimes. I'm like, what?
Yep. Well, and what I told this, she wanted to know if she should upgrade her solar panels, and how the inverter works. And the inverter, she wasn't even told it needed to be turned on. So it was off. And I said, well, first of all, you always want to leave it on while you're using the rig, because most inverters that are going to have, that kind of power, they'll have the 120 volt comes in and it's got an automatic transfer switch or a pass through. Yeah. So if you have if you have 120 volt available at that, it will switch to just allow it to pass through and provide 120 to whatever is hooked to that, and everybody does it different. You got the residential refrigerator. Some manufacturers have the TV hooked into it. Some are putting outlets in the bedroom because people are using CPAP machines. So you got to identify which ones go in there. And then basically what I told her is there's a lot of different components that you have to look at to decide how much, battery power you have available. Because just saying I have 2 batteries, are they 2 AGM batteries? Are they lead acid batteries, which you can only get 50% out of? Are they lithium, which you can get 100%? Are they 2 6-volt batteries? So you got to look at how many amp hours are in that battery, what's connected to it, and then 100 watts not going to get you very long.
Yeah, we had a guy one time. If Zach was here, he would tell you the story. He brought in a huge inverter that he had bought for a cabin. And wanted to put this inverter in a closet, and it was, we couldn't do what he wanted. It needed to be closer to the batteries versus, he wanted it at the very end of the coach where the batteries were at the other end of the coach. And we tried to explain to him about loss of power through the cable size and stuff. And so he actually didn't trust the information we were saying. And so we got him on the phone with tech support that made that inverter, and he said, no, those guys are right on. They said, you need to trust the guys that installed this every day.
Yep.
So
Terry just posted that can a remote go bad? And it can. What I would do, and I had this exact same thing happen to the Thor that we were working on, that we put in new lithium batteries, and it did not show the monitor, which was underneath the refrigerator. And so I called the inverter company and, where are we at? And what they recommended to do was take the actual display or your remote monitor out, go hook it up directly to the inverter. And sure enough, it worked. So now Terry says he put in a new phone line, but I would take that out and take it over, and you should be able to tell if you got power coming out of that inverter. And then if it's not, are your things working inside? If you hook it up direct and it's still not working, then I would say it's the remote.
And sometimes those aren't just your typical phone lines either.
Right.
The wires will be reversed at one end or the other. So
even
sometimes disconnecting it at the inverter and plugging it back in will reset it too. So you might try that.
Yeah. What I found is that this model, they had run a phone line over to the refrigerator compartment, but the remote display had wire coming out in its own phone pigtail.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's regular 4-pin, whatever that is. And they used one of those cheap little phone line to phone line blocks that you have at home that nobody uses anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was bad.
Oh, okay.
So I bought a new one of those, hooked it up, it worked fine. So I would try that. So Terry, can one test the remote for good or bad? And I think probably the best thing is to do like you said, and maybe go in and get a multimeter, get the wiring diagram from the inverter, and you should be able to test the output of that inverter, so that's good. then check continuity on the wire. But I think it's best to take that remote out and plug it in. And if it works, plug directly into the inverter. It's somewhere in the line.
Yeah.
So,
and again, sometimes some of those panels, I remember some of the old Magnum panels and stuff, we would disconnect them at the remote and they would reset. Some of them we had to disconnect it from the inverter in order to make it reset as well. So you might try that, Terry, and see what happens.
Yep.
Because it's still thinking it's plugged in at the actual inverter itself.
Okay, so Alan wants to know, can an access door be added to an outside wall to a furnace that only has access from the inside right now? It will be a pain to clean it the way I have to pull out the new one on the inside. So
yeah. So he's got a Suburban furnace. I mean, you can. You just have to order an exterior door for that and go in and cut a hole and seal it off.
Yep. Well, then you got to be careful that you know what's inside that sidewall.
Yeah.
Very few of those have any kind of a diagram showing where there's studs or even wiring sometimes.
Yeah. I would think more than likely there probably wouldn't be, because they've already cut the holes for the exhaust and intake. So, I mean, if it's above the floor level, if it's not real down low, then he might be okay. But, it's still the way that furnace is designed, Alan, is it's going to be pinned in. So, and you're going to have to still, those ones are the most difficult to take out. So, for servicing and a lot of the times it'd probably be a better idea just to leave it like it is. I mean, it can be done, but it's going to be costly to you to do it.
Okay, so but he's saying it's a pain to clean it.
Yeah.
The way I have to pull out.
So he's having to disconnect the ducts, the LP line and the wiring and completely remove it each time. And we call that like a bench version where you're going to completely extract the whole furnace out in order to clean it, extracting it from the chamber. So if for those of you that are watching on a furnace service, when somebody comes in and we look at the use of the furnace and how long you've had the furnace, we go to like a 5-year rule, and there are gaskets on that furnace that do go bad depending upon how much you use it. So typically we'll say, hey, every 5 years, if you use it quite frequently, let us pull it out. Let us, pull the furnace out of the cage. Let us take off the burner assembly, clean the burner, clean the orifice, clean the electrode, check the chamber for any, holes or anything that's in it. Sometimes when the wasp nests and stuff or mud dauber nests get in there, it's like a double S, and it will block off a curve where the heat is trying to flow out through to exhaust out, and it will actually burn little holes through the casting of the chamber. So now as it's operating, you can't smell it, but it's actually emitting, carbon into your coach because it's a forced air furnace. So basically you have a heated chamber with a fan that's just blowing over it and through it.
Okay.
So if there is a pinhole, I don't know if you've ever came across that or not, Dave, but we see it not regularly, but stuff that's like 5, 10 years old, 15 years old.
Yep.
We'll see a bad chamber.
Yep. Well, and and Alan says that it's too hard to clean it that way.
Yeah.
How often do you really need to clean it though? Outside of, this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's your typical, blow it out that way. So Alan, you just go in there and blow it out with a air wand, and that should be sufficient unless it's older.
Even a blower through one side and a shop vac.
Well, what's nice about the exterior door ones that you can open up, like say the Atwood version that we're all used to, when you remove that door down and you pull off that access cover to the fan wheel. So we've all had a ceiling fan in our house, and the ceiling fans in our house over time will collect dust and dirt on them. So sorry, I talk with my hands a lot, but
that's all right.
The ceiling fan in the house that's spinning around, it's collecting with dust and dirt on it. Well, when you open up that area, you can't see the 1.5-inch exhaust wheel, but you can see the 8-inch fresh air intake wheel that's blowing the heat across the furnace. So it's a good idea to get in there and blow that out every once in a while. Sometimes we'll have owners that have cats, and the cat hair will end up in there or dog hair will end up in there, and it will actually hang up with dirt on it, and it will keep the sail switch from opening up. And so if it's an accessible one, you want to blow it out. And like he's saying, if depending on how dirty or dusty environment he's in, you may have to pull it out once a year, once every 2 years, just depends on your use.
Okay. I was trying to find a picture of one. I have a couple down here, but they're so heavy I don't want to bring them.
Yeah, no, I've got I've got stuff I could go run out and get, but it's all in boxes. It's
no, that's fine. I think we got the general idea.
idea.
Okay. So Terry says, I have a car battery charging on for 12-volt power right now. Can I leave it on the charger or should I charge only? Did he say any more on that? Charge only what?
Yeah, we need more info.
It did not restart. New line. Well, Terry's got a couple different ones going. So you got a car battery charging on for 12-volt power. So I'm assuming you got a battery charger that's on your house batteries and charging them. Can I leave it on the charger, or should I only charge? I'm assuming till it gets charged up. But so what's your thought on leaving a portable charger?
I'm not a big fan of doing that. I would just say let the converter that's in the coach do its job.
Yeah.
I have a picture of a unit that I just did just a post on our Facebook groups that showed a customer that had burned up his battery.
Yep.
And it was on a Jayco, and he ended up melting the battery. And the battery's right in front of the A-frame trailer. It scorched the whole back wall of it, melted the LP cover. And when we were talking back and forth, basically they were just told, hey, plug in the coach, leave it plugged in all the time. And so it was constantly charging the battery. Nobody ever told them to go out and check the water level in the battery or to unplug it and cycle it down. So they found out the hard way, it caused damage to their unit. But I would just let the converter do its job. Yeah.
And a converter's designed, most of them, it depends on the type of batteries you have and the converter you have. And you're right. If it's lead acid batteries, then you're
most of them are going to be, unless it's a higher end unit or unless that dealership. So, going back to the dealership side, whenever you go purchase a coach from the dealership, if it's a travel trailer or a fifth wheel, it's the dealership that's providing you the batteries, not the manufacturer.
So
if
I think
it's a motorhome.
Terry's got a 38-foot Monaco Knight diesel pusher 06.
Yeah, so he's got to have at least 4 6-volts, I would think, and two group.
That's usually what Monaco did. Trojan 6-volt batteries, 2 hooked in series, and then those 2 banks hooked parallel. And most of the time, they had an inverter that charged the battery as well. So that's going to do a high impact 14 to 16 volt charge, and then it's going to go into a bulk and equalizing, and that will drain those batteries down. But you're right. Outside of checking the water level, I would let that inverter do the charging because it's a smart charger.
Yeah.
Versus what your car charger would be.
Or like a little entry level travel trailer. Those bigger inverter converters, they're so sophisticated now. Even Wifco or World Friendly Company, all their new converters that are coming out that they've been selling lately, they're made to, once it does its first charge, it's able to recognize what type of battery it is.
Yeah.
Whether it's a lithium, it's acid, it's a glass matted battery, AGM, so that's pretty cool technology. It's like, okay, cool. We don't have to start changing all the converters again.
Okay. Yep. So Robert asked if did you get a previous post? No, I just went back through, Robert, and I did not see anything from you in the list before. And it might have been just before. There he is. Did that just come up?
2020.
Ashley must have popped that in there. Terry. I got to scroll through this. Sorry, guys. Yep, there it is. Okay, so Robert has a 2022 Winnebago Adventurer, a 29B on a 2021 Ford F53 chassis. It appears to have a bad blend motor actuator. who is responsible for that Ford or Winnebago blend motor actuator. So I'm wondering if that means by that is the the
dampener for the
air conditioning
heater.
Yeah,
that'd be a Ford.
Well, and what I would recommend to do with that, because I think you're going to get an argument between a Ford dealership and a Winnebago dealership, is the first thing I would do is I would go onto the Winnebago site. You go on winnebago.com, go onto their owner resources page, and then go to, you've got 3D parts lookup, and it has then you just go find the chassis components in there or heating and cooling components, and it will tell you a part number and everything. And so you can get the actual diagram from that and the part number, and it will tell you who's doing that. Because I know for a long time Winnebago was buying an aftermarket heating and air conditioning component that they would put in. And I can't remember the name of it.
Acme Air, I think.
That was one, but they were, and this has been a long time ago. I haven't really kept up on what they're putting in now. But when you see that Ford chassis, that F-53 sitting there at a show or anywhere in the pictures in there, it doesn't have a blower assembly in it. It doesn't have an air conditioning and heating system in there. So I'm thinking Winnebago is probably still buying that as an aftermarket because they build their own dash and all that.
Could be. Yeah, you're right.
That switches the airflow from dash to defrost at the footwell, says Robert. So thanks for the clarification on that. But I would bet that is a Winnebago component. But if you go online to that, you find your make and your model year and stuff. They have an excellent diagram. If you need any more help than that, you can also call their owner relations department. I know them very, very well. They're outstanding because they can tell you specifically what it is. And, so most of that stuff is run on a vacuum. And, you've just got vacuum hoses that come in, and when you switch that switch, it just, moves that damper or dampener or I guess it moves that plate. So that's the Elmer Fudd version. Damn plate. And so I would say that you might want to see if you can't get the diagram for that and take a look at it. The Adventure, I think, still allows you to pull the dash pod up so you have better access to that front. It may be something as simple as a vacuum line that has come off. Yeah. That's pretty easy. It's not like the old days with the cables where the cables would stretch and you'd have to do that. So Alan says, I have a dog, and since there is no filters, I was afraid I'd need to pull it to clean it sufficiently.
Yeah. Well, because, it's that house ceiling fan effect. It's sucking in the dirt and the particles from the air to push.
Right. But keep in mind, Alan, the way your system works is when you fire that up, that fan starts up first, and it's going to pull exhaust air or outside air, through this here. That runs it through the burner assembly and all the stuff inside, and it cleans any fumes that might have been in there, any carbon, soot, that kind of stuff, and it will blow it out through here. None of that gets into your coach.
None of that. But I think what he's talking about is the forced air side of it, Dave, where it's the bigger fan that's blowing across and through the chambers. Mm-hmm. That tends to collect up with dust and hair and dirt on it, and then it'll burn in there and smell funny, and that will make that burning smell.
I agree, and that's where I recommend putting a mesh filter over that air intake coming into the inside, because whatever's coming into that furnace is not any worse than what's over at your carpet or at your sofa or anywhere else in the inside of it. So I would say that if you and make sure you don't get the real closed cell filter. You can get some of those screens that are, you got to allow airflow to come through that, and you got to have airflow on the backside. So, those are the things I would make sure that you have enough airflow, but you can put filters on those. Yeah. The rest of the comments.
Sometimes I noticed when they put them in, like the old school days, we used to put them underneath the couches and stuff. They put them in areas that are open, but usually underneath cabinetry where there's still enough air that's moving around in there, so it's not too dirty of an environment to where it's going to cause it. But
Here's
But yeah.
here's what Alan said. Don't tell Suburban. I put on a filter.
Yeah.
Don't tell Suburban.
I
If you
didn't
ever
use
need
the
it
bug
worked on,
screen, I
take
didn't
the
use the
filter off.
filter.
If you ever need it worked on, take the filter off. But
That's
as long as it, you know, and that would be a good thing. Again, use something like this,
Mhm.
and you know, when you put that filter on, just make sure it's not restricting the airflow that's coming through there. Which brings me up to our next section here that we do every day. Is we have a section called Cool Tools and Gadgets. And over the years, Dustin and I have both collected a lot of different tools and things that we use for measuring and diagnosing and stuff like that that aren't typically too common. So mine is the first one, and I'm going to do that. And it's called an anemometer. And what I like about this thing, and I'm going to get back on here so I can show you what it looks like, is too often we have people that say, my furnace isn't run efficiently enough. My air conditioning isn't cooling. Now, you know, to diagnose that stuff, you need to know the specifics. What is the airflow? What is the temperature? What I like about this is that I can go in and I can get ambient temperature, first of all, because it will tell me what that air coming into that air return is. And keep in mind, your air conditioner can only cool down 16 degrees, whatever it's bringing in. So if you got a really hot coach that you took out of sitting out in the hot sun and you fired up the air conditioner, and an hour later it's going, that's not blowing, it's blowing warm air. Well, if it's 100 degrees inside your rig, which is not uncommon, it can only cool it down to 85, which is still hot. So knowing what the ambient temperature is, and then going over and being able to tell what your airflow coming out, then you can call Dustin and say, hey, here's what I've got, and here's the things you should look for, you know. And almost every manufacturer does an airflow test on their air conditioning system. I don't know many that do on the furnace, but you can easily go up and use this at a time where you know it's running pretty good, and you know what the CFM, that's cubic feet per minute, is going to tell you. And then all of a sudden, if you see it's way down, so like Alan, you know, you can tell without the filter it's running this, with the filter it's pulling this or pushing this, then you know if you've got that. So
if you bogged it down too much,
yeah, we will. You can get this on Amazon. This one's $12.95. So I really like to have those specific components that we've used before. So let me get back to my 3-in-1 here. How do we get back to anemometer? Bring Dustin back up. There we go. So that just kind of gives you an idea of where that stuff's at. Now, I know Dustin's got a couple that
I really like your tool too, Dave. We use a couple different versions of it, but that makes such a big difference, like you're saying, when you're diagnosing it. And keep in mind, you know, the further away, the less pressure. But so many times that tool has saved us. We've found, you know, the ducking's not sealed right, or the foil tapes came loose, or something simple. And, you know, the complaints there, like, hey, my kids are freezing in the back bedroom, or the bathroom's not warm enough. And just because we had an airflow meter, we were able to trace back, like, where are we losing the volume of air? So it's great to have that.
Yep.
And as well as the temperature. So as far as my cool tools, we didn't have time to go ahead and do a pop-up picture of it. So being that it's wintertime here in my area, I talk a lot about resealing roofs, resealing bodies, making sure that they're watertight. And so I wanted to show you a caulking gun that we really like that's made by Newborn. There's a lot of caulking guns out there. What I really like about this one is it's dripless. So most of your caulking guns will have that release tab on the back. This one, you know, if you had your caulking tube in there, as you're caulking it, the thrust on it, the amount of pressure that it's putting, it's a lot more. And the second you let off the trigger, it stops. So normally you're having to take and release the pressure from the trigger in the back, and it's still wanting to ooze out. The second you stop caulking, it stopped. It's got nicer handles on it. It's got a cutter too, so that you can cut the tube, which we never really use. It's got a poker so that you can poke it.
The companies that sell silicone, though, like the other version.
Yeah, they do, because they want you to waste it.
You drip more silicone out, then you're going to buy another.
Exactly. So
not fast.
Some of the silicone we use, the different brands are really expensive. So
not wasting
that silicone and being able to, you know, put more or less on the coach where you need it. It's so much of a benefit.
Well, especially when, one of the things that we always say is that you can't just use generic silicone on every application. So when you start looking at the self-leveling type of sealants, they still refer to them as silicone, but you start looking at those things. I bought the last tube I got at Winnebago was $19.95.
Yeah.
For a tube of, we used to go run down to Ace Hardware store and get them for $2.25.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anymore.
And that's the thing is, like, people hear the word silicone. There's hundreds of different types of silicone. So when we say silicone, we're not talking about your everyday, water-based silicone or your silicone.
That's kind of a generic term that.
Yeah.
So
people hear, you put silicone on there. Don't do that. It's RV grade silicone. We use Boss, we use GeoCell, we use New Flex like that. We use Hangs, and then there's a bunch of different types for different applications.
Yep.
Dicor,
stop calling theirs silicone even. It is self-leveling lap sealant.
Yeah, Dicor's got a new cap sealant out that's similar to like the GeoCell, and it comes in white, clear, tan, and black, and it's more of like a pasty application, but it you can't run a long bead and come back and swipe it down to knock it down. But my other cool tool is a scraper. So you can get packs of these that have nice handles on them. So I don't know if you can see the handles. You can chisel on it or really get some pressure if you need to. But there's different thicknesses. There's different widths, and they're non-marring, so they won't make marks on the coach when you're scraping on it. And we use a bunch of different sizes of those to scrape off all the silicones and the sealants on the roofs. And they come in real handy. So if you're having, to take off a decal or to even, pry off or slowly remove a window or take out a molding, those come in real handy for that kind of work.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Okay. So Scott, get back up to says his 2022 White Hawk has a Go Solar 190 watt, and I would imagine he's Go Power, which is a lot of Forest River products, and people use that, especially the 190 watt. And it's got a 30 amp controller. I just did this with the one that's going to post in the morning. What are some good batteries to upgrade to that won't break the bank? Currently has 2 Group 27 lead acid batteries. I'll let you start, and then I'll jump in after. What would you recommend?
So I'm assuming it's a 5th wheel. Was it being a White Hawk?
That I do not know.
I think it's Scott. Is it a 5th wheel? Because usually if you have 27s, are typically what we put in a 5th wheel. So if it's in a front compartment, then if you're not worried about venting or ducking, I would say go to 2 6-volts. It's going to be equivalent to like basically 3.5 Group 27s. It's a travel trailer. Ashley was saying. So, okay. So whether you want to if you have the room to go with 2 6-volts, or if you want to go with AGMs or maintenance-free battery, that's fine too. But you're going to get more, amp hours and stuff from the 6-volts than you're going to get from the 2 Group 27s.
Yep. So here is my answer. Very similar to yours, but before you even get into what type of battery you want to put into it, you have to identify how much boondocking you're going to be doing, how much dry camping you're going to be doing, and what kind of, the Group 27s are better than the 24s that that a lot of your travel trailers put into it. But if you're not going to be doing a lot of dry camping, I wouldn't put a whole lot of money into batteries because you're going to be plugged in. That converter is going to be giving you at least 13.2 volts all the time, and you're wasting a lot of money. I've had a lot of people says, I'm fed up with these lead acid batteries, and I'm just going to put in lithium. Well, you can't just do that.
Yeah.
So you've got your 190 watt 30 amp controller. And if you're not going to do a lot of dry camping, I would say just get another set of Group 27 batteries to put in there. I like Napa. I like US Battery. Winnebago uses Napa. You know,
Now we
the
use
30.
interstate, but
However, and interstate is fine. I guess I go back up and I look. He's got the Go Power 190 watt solar panel, so he does do some dry camping. Otherwise, you wouldn't need those. But a lot of times,
the only thing I would worry about is the check your solar controller to make sure that it's capable for lithium. He might have to change out, because if he has an older, say he went to the dealership and somebody had an older kit, some of them
it's a
say
2022.
Yeah, but that's still, it could be if it was a 2020 solar package or 2021, it was sitting on the shelf and they installed it. Even we have some out in shop, some Go Powers that are not, the controller is the only issue. It's not set up for lithium.
Yep.
So check the controller or call Go Power and say, hey, is this controller compatible for lithium if you're going to go that route?
Well, I got to admit, Go Power is one of the best sites for technical information that's anywhere. I tell people, if they're trying to figure out what size they should put in solar panels, how many, and that, go to the Go Power site, go into their solar system setup calculator, and it's got a worksheet. And there's no perfect science, because first of all, you got to figure out what components you're going to be using. So, if your refrigerator is a residential one and you need to invert it, or even if it's gas, it's still going to draw some 12-volt power. How long is it going to run? How long are you going to go? All that stuff factors into how much battery power you need and how much solar panel then you need to replenish that, and how long you're going to boondock. So go to gpelectric.com and go into their resources page, and that calculator at least gets you started to think about that stuff. And again, if you're not going to be doing a lot of boondocking, those two Group 27s
will be just fine.
We'll get you, a few days. You can always go up with that 190 watt. You can add a second one to it.
Yep.
And a lot of times, what I tell people, and I got one sitting right here, is instead of putting a second permanently mounted one up there, go with a portable and put a side port in it, because now you can get underneath the shade, cool the rig down, and put that portable outside and be able to, get battery power or charging power while still keeping the coach cool. So
yeah, that's not a bad idea. Like you're saying, if you pull into a campground and it's covered with trees and you need to, if you can't get to that solar, then and then comes into the mix of the whole inverter stuff if he decides to do an inverter down the road. So think about down the road too, Scott, if you're going to add an inverter.
Yep. Okay. Where are we? So Britt, the winner of the Terry says 12.9 charges show batteries holding at 12.7, 12.9 now. Okay. That switches air from the dash. So we got a lot of questions that are kind of partials jumping in and out. I'm trying to catch up with. So Brett has, how often are you seeing dump cable valve cables breaking? I have a fear one will break at some point and be stuck with a full tank. I oil the valve handle compartments every camping trip with Croyle deep penetrating oil. The older oil tends to get sticky sometimes, so I may be overdoing it. How often should I oil, and do you recommend a specific oil?
So it's not really. I mean, do you want to jump in, or
no? Go ahead.
Okay. So most of your dump valve cables are in a casing, and it's just basically sliding in and out. You don't typically have to lube those at all. What you really need to lube is the actual dump valve itself. So there's products out there that's made by Volterra and Camco that are called drain valve lubricant. And inside the valve, I'm trying to show you my hands could show you the right way. As the blade is traveling in and out, exactly, there we go. As the blade is going in and out, it's the actual blade that will get clogged up with the stuff around the seal that causes that bind, causes that pulling. So when the cables usually come loose, and that's a manual hand, but when the cables come loose, some of them are put in with like an Allen screw. So it's just a cable into it with a nut, and it's just tightening up. Some of them are a Phillips nut. Some of them are just bent in. So if it gets jammed up because something gets in there, too much debris, if you're not flushing the tanks good enough, if you're not using the drain valve lubricant, when you pull hard on that, you're actually yanking that piece of metal out of the valve. Then you'll be stuck with a full tank, which means you'll have to get up in there and disconnect it and pull it.
Yep. And so here's how, if you have a cable driven system, that means that your valve, this thing,
I'll
is
right back. I'm going to grab one so I can show you.
Yep, way inside. So your tank's underneath, and instead of this handle here, there's a cable hooked to it. So your handle's over in the service compartment, 10 feet away, 12 feet away. Let's get back here. Put me on. And so when you pull the handle, it's that cable's pulling this in here. And he's exactly right. Your resistance is going to come mostly from this blade going in and out. So a good valve lube will work in there. I am not familiar with the Croyle system as you stated in there, but I do know that Valterra says do not use WD-40 because there is an inherent lubricant that is in here. They recommend a silicone, a dry silicone that you can squirt on there and then wipe it off. I believe I have, there's a couple new products. Corrosion X is one that recently came to my attention that I use. And then I also use the CRC silicone and wipe it off because it doesn't give you that oily thing. You start doing that and you're going to collect dust and dirt and those things.
So this is a Bristol cable dump valve, and it's coiled up because it's not installed. And there's where your handle would screw into so you can pull it in and out. The only real issues are this one inside there, that's an Allen that's right there. And so you can see that piece of metal that's stuck into it and it's tightened up with an Allen. That, if you pull too hard, you can pull that out. On the end of this, there's another set screw right here. That's actually holding the jacketing in place. So again, if you pull too hard and it pulls the jacketing or the rod, you'll pull it out of the valve itself. So the valve is just disconnected now at that point. It's either open or closed.
Yep.
So when you're thinking, hey, I'm going to lube this shaft that's right here. So the shaft that's opening and closing, that's not really doing anything. There's already lubricant stuff inside the casing, and it's made to flow back and forth through it.
Yep.
If that makes sense.
Yep. So Richard, I guess to answer your question, Brett, is we don't see a whole lot of the cables that are breaking. It's just a matter of doing a little bit of maintenance and put a little bit of that down the drain valve. So Richard has a Suburban water heater. It clicks 3 times, tries to fire, but bows out. Check the thermocoupler and both the AC and DC switches for the thermostat, and they are okay. Any recommendations? Go ahead.
So basically, if you have a Suburban water heater and if it's trying to ignite 3 times, it's not sensing the flame, pull out the electrode and check the electrode to make sure that the porcelain is not damaged. Check the metal igniter portion of that and make sure that it's not split. I think Dave's grabbing us one right now. Right. That's an Atwood.
Well, you can still tell them.
Yeah, but basically inside that burner chamber, so right there where the gas valve is at,
right
over to the, there we go. There we are. She got it. So
we think that
there's your electrode. Dave, you want to point to the electrode?
Yep.
So there's your electrode. So pull that out. Make sure that the porcelain's not cracked or loose. Make sure that the actual metal wire that is causing the spark to actually ignite, if that's not split or cracked in any way. It can be a real minute crack. And basically what it's doing is it's not sensing, it's sensing the flame. So it lights, and it goes, hey, even if it's lit, if that's defective, it's not sending back what they call millivolts back to the PC board, which is telling the gas valve, hey, I've got heat present, keep running.
Yep. And it could be out of alignment too.
And it could be out of alignment.
You should be able to see that spark or that attempted spark to go in there. And if it's they call it thermal tracking, I believe, is if you got a crack in that porcelain, it's going to follow the crack towards ground. Same thing with a grill. You got a home gas grill and it's got that same type of piezo spark igniter, and if that is cracked, it's going to follow the crack and go down there, and so you're going to hear it tick, 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 try to do it. But you should be able to open that thing and see if it's following that crack or if it's sparking. Now, if it's sparking,
make sure there's no burr on it too, Richard. Make sure that it's clean.
Yep. So you should be able to tell that. Okay. Don't tell Suburban there. How'd I jump clear back up there? And Terry here said, if I order a replacement, and I believe Terry's was an 06 Monaco, was that?
I think so.
Monaco Night. And what I would recommend to do is to find you got a 2000 watt inverter. So it's probably a Freedom 2000. And, you should be able to get a remote replacement, but I would call the company. I like the ones from either Xamp, Expion 360. If you go to EXPION, Expion360.com, they're in the battery market. They've got a battery monitor as well as Go Power, and I have one right here. In fact, now this is going to be a little bit different. I think you had some more stuff going on, but what I like about these is that you've got more setup that you can do with these, and it will tell you it's got Bluetooth and a variety of things. So you might not need all that, but I would just get in touch with those companies and just say, here's what I've got, be able to set it up.
And if you need any parts, call Dave, because he's got it in his basement.
I got everything down here.
I was going to ask you to pan around and show us what you have. That way we can see.
No, it's pretty messy. So I got a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Michael says that he is in Pensacola, Florida, and get ready to hashtag. In fact, it's probably time to do our drawing because we're at about 8 minutes left here.
Oh yeah, we are.
So if anybody's got one last hashtag,
get it in there.
Radio. That's what there was. Radio. That's what we're doing. So Terry, I just want to make sure we got the Michael here. Okay, or do I both in order both? All right, here we go with our drawing. We're going to be giving away a winner, Robert. All right, and I know a couple people say, well, Kate, would you give away a battery monitor? Okay, we're giving away this water heater, but you must be present in my basement to win. So, Robert, congratulations. If you will email editor@rvtravel.com and just give your emailing address so that Chuck can send that emergency NOAA radio to your location. Congratulations on that. And let's go down a little further and see where Michael, he's got 2004 motorhome. And Scott's was a travel trailer on the tongue. Yes, it is. Okay, here's then Steven says, what is the maximum number of 100 watt panels you would recommend with a 40 amp controller using 10 gauge wire from the panels to the controller? Well, first of all, I don't think 10 gauge wire is going to be enough. You want to make sure you check out the distance on how far they're going, because I know we did from a controller to the batteries and the new lithium stuff, and we had a pretty substantial drop in voltage with that. So they have a formula for the distance that you're going. So that I don't know the exact. That would be a Zach question. Unfortunately, he's not here with us tonight. But I do know that you should be able to go with a 40 amp controller, probably up to at least 3 panels.
I was going to say at least 3.
Yeah, and if you go on the Go Power or Xamp Solar and look at their arrays that they have, so they've got the single panel with a 30 amp, they got a double panel with a 30 amp, they've got triple panels, so they will kind of be able to help identify the size of controller that would be needed.
And Stephen, wherever you got the panel from, check with that manufacturer, because they may have they may have already listed out how many panels can go with that controller, what size of wire you need for how many feet.
And I don't remember. Do you remember what type of Stephen, what kind of RV is it? What year, make, and model? And Stephen, I did not see that, and can't go back up that far. Okay, but I would go to gpelectric.com is the one. Zamppower.com is the other one, and you'll see their arrays. But I would guess that if it's a 100-watt panel, I'm pretty sure it is a Zamp system. So Larry then has an 07 Tiffin Allegro on a workhorse, a W24 chassis. Front wheel bearings use the wet hub style. The rear axle apparently gets its lubrication from the rear differential fluid. And I'm pretty sure it's got the pumpkin on the back side of it. So that's where most of those chassis, it's old school technology, really. So here is Richard. Did you get my question? I think we did, Richard, because you went down a little further here.
Oh, he's got down a little further there.
Okay, Richard was the one that I think we did the water heater.
Yeah.
And I think that's the one you were talking about. As I scroll back up and see Richard, I have a Suburban.
So he says it does fire, but it doesn't stay lit. Okay. It's not sensing the flame. So I would say the cheapest part to replace on it, Richard, would be the electrode. And then if that doesn't work, then the next thing's probably going to be the PC board.
Well, and don't you?
And there's Hitch in the background.
Where's the thermocoupler on a Suburban? Is that?
It's all part of the electrode itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's no like in the refrigerators.
They had an old style square, match light style with a thermocoupler. They're doing the same thing that the Atwoods are doing. They're using the igniter to sense the flame.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to come back to Larry in just one bit because Richard said it does fire but does not stay lit. It does spark and lights the propane but does not stay lit. Same thing. Okay, so we've got Larry here. So that means there's no rear wheel bearings to pack and grease into. And on a motorized, that is true. We got 3 minutes left. So yeah. Richard, it does not.
And Richard, it's not going to be anything related to your ECO and T-stat. That's basically what's regulating the temperature of the tank. And to, the ECO part is the emergency cutoff. So that's if it got too hot, it exceeded the temperature. So if that was burnt up on the little rod that connects the two together, then that would prevent it from operating at all because it's trying to sense the temperature. But if it's trying to ignite and it's just igniting and not staying lit, it's going to be that thermal cutoff. The igniter, or the worst case is going to be the PC board. Check all your connections. Make sure that none of your connections are dirty.
Yep. Especially where that probe goes up.
Voltage. Check your batteries.
Yep. Okay, so we are at 6:58 and we are coming to a close here, but I guess I'll bring up one more. Since we don't have any questions here, I ran into a couple of products that I'm very impressed with, and I'm going to grab them.
If you find something for me, Dave, let me know, okay?
Hey, I've got a Shine product.
Oh, perfect.
Hey, it's a dome wax.
All right.
Actually, King Controls has a wax that spray that you spray on the dome. So
Dome Magic.
Dome Magic. Water beads off of it, and you get a better signal. Have you tried that?
No, but we always use Rain-X.
No. Okay. Well,
trying to save the people in California money.
Right. I got to show you. I don't know where it went. Dang it.
The taxes are killing us.
I was going to show you my new comb. It only has one tooth. But so anyway, here we got just about a minute left. And one of the things I get a lot of questions on decals. how do I treat decals? What can I do to keep them from fading, cracking, that kind of stuff? So I called Sharpline, who is one of the premier decal manufacturers. They supply Winnebago and a variety of other things. And we were talking, no wax. They don't recommend that. They said, soap and water is about the only thing that they recommend. However, they came across rejects, and the guy said, their technical engineer there said that their engineers went out, and of course, these larger decal manufacturers have fields full of decals sitting out to see what materials, what thicknesses. There's different kinds, and what's happening to the cracking. They use this on some of them, and it doubles the life of the decals.
Yeah.
It's called rejects. We're going to put some information on it on in the newsletter. The company that makes this also makes a corrosion X, great for rust under the undercarriage, to dissipate it, and corrosion X to keep it from rusting. So those are some products that
I also like using the 303 and the Protect All too. Works really good.
Yeah.
To help extend the life.
Finally figured out. So FC says finally figured out how to ask a question, but he didn't. Next time. Well, thank you. Yes. Next week, Wednesday again. Join us here. Les, Alan, Richard, Stefan, all you guys and gals that came in. Britt, good to see you back here again. And next week we will have some more cool tools. Hopefully we get some more people on for some questions and things like that. Don't forget to tell your friends about it, other people that are in your RV groups, Facebook pages you're on, and ask questions at the Ask Dave and the other places. So everybody, thank you for coming out. Dustin, thank you. Ashley, thanks. And with that, everybody have a great week. We'll see you back here next week.
So much for joining us on today's live stream. If you think today's content was helpful, let us know by hitting the like button or share it with a friend.
We'll be right back here next Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We hope to see you then.